So, you are all in the employ of Rogue Trader Lord Commodore Jakel Varonius. Jakel Varonius is the last scion in a long line of rogue traders. He traces his origin quite a while back. In fact, some say that his writ of trade was signed by the Emperor himself. So that would make it at least 10,000 years old, by anyone's counting. The Emperor, as we know, has been confined to his golden throne for at least 10,000 years after the horrendous Horus heresy that tore the galaxy apart. And
blessed be him.
Blessed be the Emperor, for he protects you and his light guides you.
Always.
Quite recently, there was a sudden amass of chaotic warp energy which tore apart the galaxy, creating the Great Rift and the Eternal Night, splitting the Empire of Humanity into two, and dimming the light of the Astronomicon, the light of the Emperor with which the navigators used to guide themselves through the Imperium. And your rogue trader is quite a, how would you say it, a man who considers himself an administrator and a caretaker of his family's heritage. And he, of course, was helping local governments in dealing with some minor orc incursion when it happened. And once he received news of the reawakening of one of the Emperor's blessed sons, Roboti Guilliman, he set out to aid this Primarch, as he's called, in his endeavors. Roboti Guilliman began something called the Indomitus Crusade, an attempt by Guilliman to reunite the shattered empire and form a mailed fist to once again strike back against chaos and the Xenos who threaten the empire from outside, attempting to, like jackals perhaps, scavenge the corpse of the dying empire. But it will not die.
Never.
Never.
It is not even dying.
I have
It
not
is
heard.
flourishing.
It is cleansing itself,
Indeed.
such as faith cleanses the soul and pain cleanses the body.
Indeed. And Roboti Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, was long thought lost to the Empire, as he was struck down not too long after the Emperor himself. However, the arrival...
That is heresy. Emperor was never struck down.
No, of course not.
He stepped down.
He stepped down. He sat down on the
Yes.
throne. And it kept him occupied for a while.
He had things to do.
Indeed. But the arrival of a Primarch is considered by many a sign of a blessed time coming. However, for the imperial citizens of the Gilead System, this was a mixed blessing. As Guilliman and his fleet traveled through the system, the Primarch demanded a raise in both tithes and manpower, and his fleet recruited, or rather just conscripted, the majority of the armed forces in the Gilead System before moving on, demanding higher tithes of food production to be delivered to support his forces. Of course, as any loyal citizen of the Imperium would do, the Lord Governor of one of the systems, Charybdian, and his name would be Governor Veneratio, did his best, but it would seem that Governor Veneratio has now disappeared, and which you will learn more of soon. You, however, arrived at the system a scant few weeks ago in the fleet of Lord Commodore Jakel Varonius, as he traversed the Great Rift, one of the few private fleets to have ever actually accomplished this. Of course, Roboti Guilliman's fleet did, at a great loss, but yours without losing a single ship. And doing so, your Lord Commodore claimed that he had discovered a strait through the toiling, whirling, chaotic abyss, and he named it Strait of Andraste. And as you arrived, the Lord Commodore spent most of the time learning about the system he had arrived to, finding out that the Empire left it in quite a state before moving on, and he has therefore decided to, being the Emperor-sworn loyal subject of the Imperium he is, bring order and peace to a system troubled by strife and internal conflict. And this is where you come in. You are one of hundreds of thousands of travelers in this fleet, You have met the Rogue Trader perhaps once or twice in your time aboard his fleet, but mostly you have been delegated to some of the smaller ships. Now, however, your Rogue Trader is in need of footfolk, warbands to do his bidding, to act where he cannot, to gather information where his eyes might not see. And therefore you have been sent for by Jakel Varonius to his flagship, the Ducal Circlet, where you will meet with the Lord Commodore himself and receive your orders. Now, before we continue, you all find yourself aboard an Arvis Lighter, which is a small transportation ship, quite cramped. It can carry about 8 people aboard it. So it is
Really small.
It is really small. You're
more like-
sitting together in the
Is it
storage
like a
compartment.
cannon shell being shot through space to another ship, or?
I will send the information around if you wish to look at it.
Ooh,
An Arvis
picture.
Lighter is a standard model, cheaply produced transportation vehicle, usually used between planet to surface to
Orbital
orbital
things.
travel, as well as between ships. Of course, some of his more valued agents would be traveling an Aquila Lander, but you are not yet counted among those.
True to my calling, I walk up and down the little space we're being in. However, it may be we be there. I walk up and down, ever pacing.
The pilot, of course, is sitting in an enclosed compartment, so he's not bothered by this, but you will have to walk almost hunched, as there are 2 benches on each side that you can sit on if you wish, which you are not, of course, doing.
Well, you know, duty is heavy as a mountain,
Yes.
but death is light as a feather.
So as Brother Mateczka walks around, what does his fellow warband members see?
Always what you hear is his feet, soft padding, as he's always, all and everywhere he walks across the galaxy, he walks without shoes. So you hear the soft padding of feet, maybe a slight wince here and there, for they are cut and mostly bleeding and very calloused and dirty.
The feet of an honest man.
Punctuated is with the feet is a walking staff, or rather a ancient eviscerator in the form of a chain halberd, which he carries with him as his walking staff is if he's happened to be walking. Of course, it also serves as a self-defense or an instrument of the Emperor's wrath, if need be.
Does it have a name, like the Instructor or something like that?
Innocence Lost. Well, he is clad in a saffron yellow robe,
Oh.
a robe of a mendicant monk. So in his belt he carries a beggar's bowl, and he says that the Emperor provides whatever I need. If he does not provide, ergo, I do not need it. He is painfully thin, like a man who has been fasting on and off for years and years, walking all day, every day. So he has the body constitution of almost a starving man, but the body is entirely resurrected by his strong willpower.
By a drive,
Yes.
by a passion, by a will.
By faith.
Yes.
Of all of these things. The robe of a mendicant priest covers one arm, and the other one is left free. That one is horribly burnt from an earlier episode in which he actually met the Lord Commodore Jakel Varonius, and he has told you about it, but it's a bit long to take right here, right now, I think.
We will get to it in time.
On his back, he carries a wooden reliquarium, where the skeletal remains of the Mother Superior
Of his order.
Yes, of the Order of the Arduous Path. And she is Felixa Kozlovska. And she is a not yet canonized saint.
She will, someday.
Of course, of course.
Otherwise, you would not be carrying the burden.
Well, it takes a certain while to send all the formalia to Holy Terra and get it back and everything. But the Holy Mother had been on a pilgrimage her entire life. But when she died, she expressed a great will to travel to even more shrines and to uncover even more relics. So I have taken a vow upon myself to carry her upon my back until she is truly canonized, and we will set her down and build a cathedral to her honor.
And the planet Enoch is located in the system, which is a shrine world, which is also home to a order of Adepta Sororitas called the Order of the Sanctified Shield. So perhaps, Emperor willing, you may one day visit this shrine world and
I
bask in its glory.
most hope so, and I will strive towards that goal if the path that I wander takes me there.
Of course.
Otherwise, you can say that upon my forehead is branded the Imperial Aquila, so
The
that
two-headed eagle.
the two-headed eagle, so that everyone who gazes upon me sees what most occupies my mind and my soul.
Is it upon your brow, or is it covering your eyes, or is it across entirety of your face?
Now, as I do have for my order, classical tonsure to keep the head open for the Emperor, it is also branded upon the forehead, not to obstruct anything of the eyes, just to really let the Emperor's light shine in
To seal
even
with-
better.
To seal with the hair. Does it go all the way to the hairline?
Yes. Yes. And otherwise, there was this thing.
It can...
Oh, of course, I do have some chained books, because the Arduous Path is, of course, a scholarly order.
Of course. Of course.
Some of them are scholarly works, but one of them are his most prized possession, except for the reliquarium and the eagle. And the symbol of the mysterious.
It's just one of his most prized
It's one of his most prized possessions. It's the Vita, so it's a life's deeds, a tome of the life of the Saint Felixia. So in there he carries all the sayings and histories and everything from her many hundred years of life.
Is this something you preach as of yet, or do you wait until she is truly canonized before you start preaching?
I do not truly preach, but I might partake unto some of the wisdoms in it, and I do use it to meditate upon where I should go next, to hear her voice and to try to partake of some of that wisdom.
Brilliant, brilliant. Setting a high bar for everyone else. Who wants to continue?
Yeah, fine. Well, Arril is seated calmly, paying little attention to the other passengers as he's attending to his blades, of which he carries many. And
Are you sharpening your blades as we are traveling?
yes,
Of course he would.
yes, I
Sudden
have plenty,
stops.
and all deserve the utmost attention.
Whilst traveling fast.
Indeed.
In the void. There is
Yes.
really no.
No one to hear you scream.
Inertia is still a thing.
There's no gravity in this vehicle.
No, but
Well,
inertia.
heresy grows from idleness. I
Of
think
course.
this is a good thing.
Of course.
Also, I'm clad in my armor, so it bothers me a little should I slip,
Brilliant.
which I rarely do. Basically, the only scars Arril carries is within his hands from sharpening the blades, as he's seen very little actual combat. Mostly with blunt training weapons. But seeing as he has been introduced to death from a recent attack on his home planet, Agernia,
Mm-hmm.
an agricultural planet,
Mm-hmm.
which, well, about 90% of his life has been a monotonous academic life.
A death cult is on an agri world, so
Yes.
kind of an oxymoron, really.
Indeed.
You worship the concept of death and not
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But no actual experience of it other than the untimely death of elderly and sick.
Who
Perhaps-
attacked the planet?
Perhaps animals, you butcher them for training.
Well, of course, anatomy is part of, well, a pretty big part of the training,
Of course.
but it offers little resistance.
Who attacked your homeworld?
Well, the attack is from, well, pirates, basically.
Corsairs, perhaps. Elder
Yeah.
Corsairs taking slaves. And
Taking
murdering
slaves.
the weak and feeble who cannot
Yeah.
service them.
Absolutely. Also, traveling through space with no actual home gives an immediate demand for food and other provisions.
Of course.
And an agricultural planet would offer little resistance and much of the...
Indeed. You were one of the few survivors of the world. Did you, were you saved, or did they merely move on while you were still alive?
Well, the actual attack was pushed back, basically because there were a lot of death cult assassins there.
They fucked with
Many-
the wrong world.
Yeah.
Well-fed, well-trained.
Which you would never imagine being on a peaceful planet like this.
Exactly. So when the pirates, the corsairs, arrived, I don't think they expected to face a basic legion of trained assassins.
Legion.
Damn. But why are you? How are you dressed? First of all, let's continue with that before we go on to why are you with the Lord the Commodore?
Yes. I'm clad in the basic under armor, hardened leather, and rubber, basically airtight.
The black bodysuit of,
Yes.
of the assassins. Yes.
Accompanied by...
Sweat. Lots and lots of sweat.
yes.
Well, it's very punk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Along with breastplates, shoulder plates, and gauntlets. Basically never used, but it's been given very much attention. Seeing to flaws when it comes to mobility, potential open areas which offer opportunity of attack.
Continue.
So, well, accompanied by some cloth. Some are donned with some simple scriptures, holy words, sentences.
Of course. Prayers that you have memorized for
Yes.
for whenever you go into battle, perhaps.
Indeed.
When you deliver the killing blow.
Every blow is a kill.
Yes.
How did you end up on this fleet?
Well, basically, right after the attack from the pirates, our good lord actually visited the planet, picking up provisions for his travels. And visiting the planet and seeing what had happened, there were still traces of the pirate attack. He became curious, not very familiar with the concept of non-active death cult assassins. And seeing how we work and our concepts of how the job is supposed to be done, he became curious. And as I was tired of, well, a passive life, I offered my services.
Of course. And he gladly accepted.
Yes.
After all, death cultists are a rare commodity. And one too. Martin, as well. There you go. So, anything you want to add before that? How you only have a first name, of course. This is this a conscious choice, or did you just not tell the other ones your last name, your family name?
Well, during the upbringing, we rarely refer to anyone by a second name. So Arril became what was there. There was no need for a second name.
Okay, of course. Thank you very much. Anything you want to add to that, or?
Well, Arril has some would say sickly obsession with blades and anatomy.
Some would say sickly. I would say...
They're all dead.
Of course. Before we continue, I handed out the... these are called your campaign cards, which you get 1 per session. You can play this whenever you want to.
Right. And should this one be a secret?
You can tell them later if you want, but I would appreciate not to know what it is, so you can surprise me with it.
Yeah.
Very good. So that's Arril.
Yes.
And how about we go with one of you two next?
All right. Sitting strapped in at a bench is a Death Corps of Krieg, Imperial Guardsman, standard issue. Strapped down and secure. Backpack, well packed by his feet, being held by one hand, the other one holding tight his Lucius Pattern number 98 las gun, as needed.
There are many like it, but this one is yours.
This one is given to me, yes. He is, as a guardsman should be, tall, not too tall. Wide, not too wide. Well fed, sometimes. He is very grey in most colors, grey and dark grey green, because they are apparently. He has very few markings of rank upon him. Well, if you would understand the process of rank giving, you would understand he has 1 rank. He is 1 step above cannon fodder. He is advanced cannon fodder. He is dressed, as he most always is, in a big leather mask with a gas mask attached. Its outer shape appears to be that of a skull, because they have that. Always a helm, always wearing gloves. The few pieces of flesh that you see are pale and waxy. And for those of you who have seen burns before, recognize them as such, although they are not made of a fire, more of constant exposure to radioactivity from his happy-go-lucky homeworld of Krieg. Classified as a death world, of course. And he is here because of all you 3. Perhaps the great Jakel thought you needed some muscle in behind you. I mean, we have a bladesman. Fine. I mean, sure, if you need to charge people, but... Anyhow, this one, this Gotsdam, as you have known him, or 5509, if you have known him a bit shorter, rarely speaks overly much. He joins in at prayers, mostly mumbling, but the words seem to be correct. He does the Aquila whenever you look at him. Oh, you brother Shinran, or what?
Mateczka.
Brother
Or
Mateczka,
Shinran.
yes. Otherwise, he is...
Mumbling, eh?
He shrinks a bit, but... Yes.
I do believe those burns would search their way to his tongue. Based
but
on the
it's-
amounts of
Oh, okay,
radiation.
okay. So how long has 5509 been with the fleet?
He has been with the fleet for the last 2 years, actually. Something strange happened to him. He was on yet another world, sitting in yet another trench, fighting yet another enemy of mankind. He thinks it was the orcs this time. They never really got close enough for him to see, but he still was shooting at them, as you do, throwing
Of course,
grenades.
if they would get close enough.
It's
he would
bayonet.
he would no longer be alive.
Of course he would be, if the Emperor wills it. But seeing as he is, for a guardsman, I don't know if you ever found this out, but he is quite old. He is 54 Terran Standard years old. And the average length of, or the average lifespan of an Imperial Guardsman seems to be about 20. So, anyhow.
It's a sinewy old fuck.
Yes, definitely. Something strange happened when the Indomitus Crusade passed by the planet where the war was happening. This new concept of retirement happened. He does not really understand it, but the one thing he did understand was he was relocated to serve under a rogue trader. Yes, that must be it. No new strange words, but the commissar informed him that you should go there and serve him now, after he was staring blankly for a couple of hours. But he left his favored trench, the one where his parents met, perhaps?
And his father's parents, too.
Well, the gene givers...
They dug that trench.
And I fortified.
Yes.
As I should.
You're essentially the space equivalent of Viet Cong.
Yeah, or the American army in Vietnam. I am shell-shocked beyond belief. Things that is non-military, and well, all new things are kind of icky, but they told me that I should be expecting new things and learn new things. I do not let it frighten me, of course, but
If I may add a little bit of information, that if you have a military bent or a murderous bent, you have most likely served aboard the lunar class ship. I don't quite remember the title. Called the Aged Sapphire, which is commanded by a lady captain, Ray Varonius.
what was the ship's name?
The Aged Sapphire. And the Aged Sapphire is the, I would say, the ship where the majority of the armed forces of the fleet are trained and housed. It has been converted to essentially a massive mustering ground for armed troops with training facilities simulating everything from scorching deserts to void combat.
Since I have no commanding officer, I am on the sidelines being lost mostly.
You've probably been doing the...
I have been fortifying my position quite a bit.
Of course.
The name of the lady who ran the ship.
Ray, R-H-E-A, Ray, Varonius,
Varonius. All right.
which I believe is the... No, Varonius.
Fair enough.
I don't know why I said Varonius. Varonius.
Vicarian?
And in the family name, in the family line, she is what?
She is the daughter of the Rogue Trader.
Is she a militant female?
Yes.
And her rank is what?
Her rank is Lady Captain, and she is the commanding officer of the Varonius forces, armed forces. You might have seen her more often than you've seen Jakel Varonius, as she takes a more hands-on approach to armed conflict.
Indeed.
She serves on her father's inner council, where she advises him in military affairs. Perfect. Anything you want to add before we go on to the last but not least member of the group?
Let's see. Is there something really special that would be fun to know about this guy? Not yet. He's all done.
Perfect. So, Elmeric.
Yeah. Elmeric is a man who you could easily mistake for a street punk. Among these more high-standing member of society, he does stand out a bit as being...
Plain?
Yeah. He's not the person you'd expect in a company like this, because he really does look like the lower class of a imperial or a high world.
How does he dress?
He's got a dark blue hoodie of a very simple design. It's in pretty good shape for being a street punk, at least. That's something you can say about his clothes. Some dark grey pants and a very simple belt around on the outside of his hoodie, which kind of signifies that he has little taste. You're not supposed to wear belts on the outside of hoodies, but it's handy. In his belt hangs what you suspect is a Arbitus class shock maul. You might be certain, but you have your suspicion.
The discipline masters.
You suspect it might.
It looks like a standard issue one. I don't know if either. Most likely, you were from a high world, right, brother?
Forge World.
Forge world, of course. Then you might have seen Arbitus.
On the Novogor system.
Oh yes, of course. Of course, the galaxy is big, so
Hmm.
they could be mistaken. But it does
Yeah.
certainly look like the black painted shock malls of the Adeptus Arbitus.
Yeah.
Any firearms or?
A small, rather boxy las pistol is from his belt as well.
Solid.
And some small pouches that you don't know what's in it.
Of course.
He's got kind of pale skin, someone who hasn't seen much sunlight in the last years.
How well do the others know you? How much have you told them about you yourself?
And
well,
just
you-
saying, I have not asked you a single question.
Well, it's entirely possible that he has talked to some of them, and he hasn't told them much about why he left his home planet. But somehow he seems to be able to afford luxuries aboard his ship. He has a larger cabin than probably anyone else, and seems to be enjoying the good life despite not looking like he should be able to.
He is a man of hidden means.
Exactly.
Perfect. For the record, you have worked together with each other before. Most likely you've trained or done small operations together as the travel through the rift took quite a long time. I'm not assuming you've been actively doing something like what you're going to be doing now, but you're at least familiar with each other, and you probably were formed into a war band as per default happens to all agents recruited into the dynasty. But you've yet to prove yourself more than grunts. And this might be the big chance for you to prove that you are more than just cannon fodder in the fight for the survival of the Imperium. Which of course you are more than that. Not that you wouldn't mind sacrificing your lives.
Well, if we've had smaller assignments together, then you know that I have an uncanny knack for actually finding information about people and also their belongings,
Indeed.
if I want to find them.
You buy things from people, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. So, brilliant. You're all sitting in this this Arvis, which I believe it was called?
Walking.
Arvis Lighter. Walking in the Arvis Lighter. And
Am I the only one strapped in like you should be in a moving spacecraft?
I'm probably strapped in.
you're of course
Yes.
in the void, so you're traveling between ships, and you are heading towards the Exorcist class battle cruiser, the Ducal Circlet. which is the
Exorcist
flagship.
class.
Exorcist class.
Oh,
It is a very, very old ship. The Exorcist class is almost completely replaced in the Navy, if any of you would know that. And it certainly has a look of it. It is a ship that it doesn't have the traditional prow of Imperial ships. If you've seen illustrations of them, they have this prow shape at the front of the ship. And those are, I wouldn't say fairly new, but this ship class was definitely around during the Horus Heresy, perhaps even earlier. How old this ship, of course, you don't know, but unlike the other ship, the Aged Sapphire, which is relatively new, this one has seen quite a bit of reconstruction, and already you can see from here the hemisphere of the commanding deck, where the Rogue Trader basically commands his entire fleet of nearly 500,000 souls that travels through the void. You approach the one of two docking bays of this ship, and the docking bays, of course, are humongous, taking up quite a lot of space. And already from here, you can see almost countless Arvis lighters. You see several of the Aquila landers. You even see some fighter ships suspended by grav belts in the ceiling of the docking bay. And as you approach, you see how the area is evacuated by, you see small dots of people moving inside of protected areas as the integrity field of the docking bay is released to allow the ship to enter. And as your craft comes inside, it is grabbed by the artificial gravity of the station, and the brother would almost lose his balance if he wasn't used to this kind of travel.
And using my staff.
Of course. But it's quite shaky as you suddenly jerk to halt and sink down onto the floor. And you can see out of the glass panels, you see several servitors, pilots, ship staff, and adepts of the Adeptus Mechanicus moving around outside. The docking bay is littered with boxes and vehicles moving back and forth, transporting cargo and transporting crew to their ships. And you hear over the intervox that, "Passengers, we have arrived. Please evacuate yourself from the vehicle as we will be departing in 2 standard minutes."
I slap the restraint harness, get up, gaze swiftly across to Errol's probably newly cut palm, and move out. Grab my bag and move out.
I've ran obstacle courses while sharpening knives.
I don't
so-
know this. I'm just saying.
No,
Steelty
I'm
boots,
unscathed.
smacking hard on the surface and marching out.
Arril, you've practiced over 100 different positions while sharpening blades, including lying in a
At least
sleeping bag.
100. Yes.
In
No,
the shower was fun.
While I step down and feel the hard metal of this old ship, I watch out for if there might be any signs to one of the fabled libraries, which are supposed to be on this huge ship. And I wonder if I'll ever get a chance to read in some of the tomes supposedly carried in them.
You've heard rumors of the Varonius treasury, which is only accessible to those with the blood of the Varonius dynasty. And they are supposed to be ancient relics, far beyond the age of any still living mortals. Perhaps with a few exceptions. And it would be a dream to behold the old artifacts and relics of the Imperium's past. The area is bright and loud, and it's as soon as you step outside, you're almost run over by a vehicle zooming past you, carrying 20 people heading towards one of the Aquila landers, and the driver shakes his fist at you as he keeps driving, keeps moving on.
I look visibly a bit uncomfortable with just this huge space that we're in.
I march comfortably and quite nicely just through it. I matched the pace of everything almost without noticing. Just used all the clutter.
Those of you who are more aware of your surrounding, well, most of you would probably recognize the armed guards of the Varonius dynasty. They're dressed in the indigo blue uniforms with the symbol of 3 silver pillars above their heart, which is the symbol of the dynasty. And etched into these pillars are the letters VVM, which is something that you will find almost everywhere across the entire fleet. So it's indigo blue with 3 silver pillars with the VVM, 1 letter on each pillar.
As we have traveled and I have seen their troops marching and drilling and stuff like that, how do I rate them?
They are well disciplined, probably not as tough and resilient as you are. They're definitely not accustomed to trench fighting. They're more of a shock troop kind of. They are often used. You could compare them to what are they called? The stormtroopers of the Imperial Guard. They are usually
They're bigger, bulkier, and
Yes.
go fast.
Yes,
All right.
they have carapace armor, good equipment. They are deployed in smaller squads in vulture gunships. Is that what they're called?
One of them is, yeah.
Yes. So they are definitely more well trained. They have better equipment, but they're not as tough.
Yeah, well, they can say that they're better, but let's see in 30 years if they're still alive.
Probably not.
Emperor willing.
Emperor willing, of course.
And some rejuvenac treatments, perhaps.
You've been aboard this ship before, and there are several different exits that you could take. There is the main entrance, I guess you would call it, which is a larger set of double doors, which is basically where the Rogue Trader himself arrives to this docking bay, and any dignitarians. You have been ordered to appear at the commanding deck, or the command deck. However you get there is up to you, of course. There are multiple ways to get there, but this would be the most direct one to go through the main doors, as it were.
Marching.
Being from the Order of the Arduous Path, I, of course, think that we should go a longer way, more demanding way, to prepare our minds for this, what I deem to be mission.
Transportation aboard ships like this is usually handled by lifts, going up and then moving a bit and then going down. So there's several floors of ships like this. So there's certainly a way to walk through everything but the commanding deck. But you were also ordered to appear soon.
Well, soon. As soon as my feet can carry me. Or do you have other...
Let's walk, but in a straight line towards the goal.
Well...
You can make up to it in penance later.
Well, be sure to remind me.
You could walk around on the command deck while you're listening.
Well, I am known for always trying to walk the same distance as the ship that we're traveling every day.
If you wish...
Trying to walk the same distance.
Yes, trying, of course. But I do walk most of my...
Speaking of,
if you want, we can...
These are information pages about the different kinds of ships that we've mentioned, if you want to read up on any of them. This ship has about 110,000 people in its crew.
And they're all weak.
Of course.
Yeah.
These are actually the cream of the crop manning this ship.
Still weak.
I suspect
to
that
him.
the guardsmen are referring to that they are, in fact, a part of the fleet.
Ah, yes, of course.
Age-old rivalries, I think they're called.
Presumably, yes.
And how many of them are above 50?
Or 20.
Probably not a lot. Probably not
What,
a
they
lot at
haven't
all.
seen battle yet? Yeah. Anyhow, if the brother so wishes to make his journey more strenuous, I can probably throw out some pieces of broken glass before your feet. If you'd like that.
You do have barbed wire?
I do, but that's not for him walking.
Well, that would be pride, I think. I'll just walk. And as you say, make it up for it later.
Very good, brother.
So come on then.
No dawdling.
So you go straight for the main entrance then?
Yeah.
Perfect. The twin doors open as you approach them automatically, your biosignatures having been confirmed by the databanks. And as you enter, you find yourself in a completely different environment. While the light outside was bright and artificial, and the sound was overbearing, as soon as the doors close behind you, there is a soft kind of hum, and lights turn on. It's like natural sunlight in this corridor, and the walls are wooden, like wooden panels, and music starts playing as you walk through the walkway towards the personal lift of the Rogue Trader himself. The music is a string orchestra. You know the composition is, of course, being the anthem of the dynasty itself, composed over 2,000 years ago by some of the finest musicians on Terra.
As this is luxury, I will assume this is difficult terrain for me.
Yes, of course. You may crawl if you so desire.
I fight the urge and keep on walking.
It is exquisite music.
I wouldn't know.
What is this sound?
It's not...
What
But it
weapons
is-
make these?
But what does it glorify, the music? Only the Rogue Trader and the family?
There's no lyrics.
Hmm.
It is just a hymn.
I just put it in my back of my mind to ponder it later.
You could apply your own lyrics to it, of course. Make it a hymn to the Emperor.
That's a much better idea. I do that.
Right? You're like going through the stanzas, like, okay, what can I? Glory to the Emperor.
Oh yes, it keeps me occupied.
Yes. The walkway is about 30-40 meters.
I feel slightly reluctantly at home.
This is
Slightly familiar.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's almost like a scent in the air that reminds you of the fields.
Blood. Oh wait.
Not yet. That's more of like your bunk.
No. He remembers it, and I found. Well, he's a deaf cultist, and
I can imagine that you create some artificial water drips in your bunk rooms, so that the rust can spread the nice, pleasant smell of metal in the air.
no, I have a piece of rust in my backpack.
No, inside your mask.
You don't know what I have inside. Old socks, just to make it.
You proceed, I suppose, towards the lift room, and as you enter, you see a. It would look more like a gazebo almost. It is a ebony and ivory decorated round platform with pillars on the side carrying the ceiling. There are divans to lie down on. There are pillows and cushions and chairs. There's a hovering tray with glasses of some kind of sparkling drink, which has just a slight bit of frosting on the glass. And there are plates of fruits of the multitudes of colors that you've never even seen before. And you see servitors, who are, of course, humans, lobotomized humans meant to do simple, meager tasks, and they're standing ready with wet, warm napkins and like standing in the background, decorated beautifully. You wouldn't even think that these were once sentient human beings, or perhaps they never were. And as you step aboard the platform, it just slides into motion. There is no vibration, there's no sound. It's like a small field of noise cancellation around the vehicle that makes it feel like you're flying through air.
Well, I hold on to something just almost instinctively.
It is a little bit uncomfortable, probably, to just hover up, but you're free to use whichever, or at least you can presume that you're free to use whatever.
I actually take my time to examine potential surgery traces on the servitors.
The servitors are excellently crafted. There are no obvious signs of tampering with their brains, but you can see a subtle scarring behind their ears where someone has done intrusive surgery into them. And they are completely mute, of course, but they follow you with their eyes as you move around, so you can see that they're paying attention to you, as it were. There is also, as you begin moving, you see a small servo skull fitted with a small anti-gravity engine. It seems to be observing you, a small red light in one of its sockets, following your movements and occasionally trying to spot what you're doing if you're, for example, fiddling with the servitor. So you're clearly being watched.
I'm only observing, not fiddling with anything.
Of course.
I go up to all of the luxurious fruits and drinks, and then I stand there watching it intently while I deny myself to take anything.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts. Such a delicious hurt.
The scent.
The smell.
Instead I start counting my rosary beads and the 323 virtuous natures of the Emperor.
One of the servitors glides up towards you and opens a canister, which has a creamy white substance in it. It says, ice cream.
No.
Of course. And it glides away and offers ice cream to the rest of you.
I swiftly check my pack, see how much rations I am currently carrying.
Have some dried sausages, an old potato, and a few slices of bread.
Ah, yes. I gaze upon the luxurious riches of food and try to calculate which processed foods could be easily applied to trench warfare. How can I grab the ones that can last the longest?
Let me guess. You've never seen ice cream before.
I have no idea what that is. It's not ice, and I don't know what cream is.
Well, you could just grab a hand and put in your backpack.
Ice. I stand looking at the servitor until it moves away. I don't know what else to do.
It takes a long while until it slowly
I have
turns
patience.
towards Elmeric and glides over towards you.
Silently, I move a chair between us.
Well, I graciously accept the ice cream while still holding on to the railing with a very firm grip.
The ice cream is exquisite. I mean, you've been on this fleet for quite a while, but this is something else.
Are you he is eating lubricant. That's the closest thing it's gun lube. I mean, he's eating it. Strange man.
You produce your gun lubricants from like pools, puddles beneath corpses where all the fluids have sunk in.
It's the best kind.
So you're the only one, Elmeric, you're the only one actually eating anything of what's being offered.
I refill my stocks if I can.
Of course. Well, there's some fruits that you presume could be dried. There's certainly, the drinks.
I pick up an assortment of goods I think will suffice. I put them down in the same canteen because in a few days they will be the same.
Delicious, delightful. You make a small mental calculations. One of you is like, this food alone is worth more than any of you have ever made in your entire lives.
Oh, no.
Salary?
Well, no, not you, of course, but yeah.
What is that?
It is worth more lives than you have ever killed in your entire life.
Ooh.
Yes, sorry.
Worldly trinkets.
Of course. You tell yourself as you look at the food.
Well, of course I am human, so I am inherently weak. And I do have longings which have nothing to do with my holy vow. But I mean, that is why the Emperor tests us, so that we may strengthen ourselves.
Of course. So, it takes a scant few minutes before the vehicle... Oh, actually, before a door suddenly appears in the dark. As you've approached it without even noticing, because the tunnel is completely pitch black around you.
You're saying the lumen globes turn a light. It's not like warp sorcery. Suddenly
No. You've been going up a channel or a tunnel that has been pitch black. Just the inside of this gazebo-like hovering lift has been lit. And you see this door that appears before you. It is a massive 4-meter tall door, set of double doors. It is gilded, and engraved into this gold are depictions of the Emperor and 9 of presumably his Primarch sons leading legions of space marines as they point towards the star and to the conquest of man from the time when...
I do an Aquila and mumble, glory hounds.
I fall to my knees before the Emperor, praying.
His glory is without doubt. Of course, none of you have ever seen the Emperor, but it is impossible not to discern his imperiousness from illustrations such as this.
He does
no illustration can actually...
He does have great abs.
Give-
Imperial nobility.
Of course.
Yeah.
He does look quite different from the depictions from my homeworld.
In fact, none of you have ever seen a depiction like this, but
What? This one has great abs. I mean,
But well, it is well known in the Imperial Creed that the Emperor has 1,000 faces.
of course, each one to
A
suit
reflection of the greater good.
Indeed.
The greatness.
The greater good.
The greatest of all good. The Emperor.
Yeah, yes, of course.
It was a slip of tongue.
Of course.
a lifetime.
Was this a normal 40k campaign? Right now, everyone would be aiming their weapons at you.
Who says I'm not?
Why would they? Because if they knew
Of course.
what that actually meant, why would they be here?
Of course.
I just have a sixth sense for that, heresy sense.
The doors slowly open up to reveal the hemisphere that you spotted from outside the ship. And the floor is black speckled marble. It looks like the stars in space outside. It is polished to the point where you have a perfect replica of yourself underneath your feet in the reflection. It could be very deep. It could even be transparent. It's hard to actually know. The glass outside is thick, but you can see slight scarring from impacts of battles long past. And there's a walk bridge leading out to a platform in the center of the room, and surrounded in a horseshoe shaped is the lowered area where the crew are situated. So above them is the small circular platform with the both the captain's chair and his control panel, as well as a strategy table that has been raised out of the floor. And standing by this table, you spot two figures. One of them is a tall, chiseled man dressed in a form-fitted, dark blue, almost black uniform. It's slightly navy in appearance, but it is unmistakably that of the Varonius dynasty. It is Lord Commodore Jakel Varonius himself. He has short, blonde, curly hair in a perfect coif and piercing dark blue eyes, and he has a kind of bemused, almost condescending look on his face, like he knows that he's superior to all of you, but he deigns you the time and attention that you deserve. He has the 3 stripes of silver on his breast as well, and it almost looked like he was molded into this suit. It fits perfectly with every movement. He stands with his hands cupped in front of him at ease, and at his side you see his daughter, who is wearing a similar suit, designed not to in any way accentuate her beauty. She is of course beautiful, she is of a fine dynasty after all, but rather to impose terror and fear in her enemies. She has stern, grim look. Her long blonde hair is tied up in a complicated braid at the back.
Does she
of
have
her
any scars?
Oh, she does.
Oh.
She has a scar that runs across her entire face diagonally.
Cleft lip? Broken nose?
Oh,
Ripped
indeed,
ear?
a broken nose.
Oh.
The ear is not yet touched. She has while her father's eyes are piercing in the way that he sees you, and he pays attention to you, and it's hard to look away. Her eyes are the kind of look that she immediately evaluates whether or not you're a threat, and how best to get rid of you. Lord Commodore Varonius looks up and says, "Ah, yes. Welcome, everyone.
Do a quick salute.
Brother Mateczka, Elmeric, Gotsdam, Arril. Welcome.
I quickly kneel and present my weapon, sheathed, of course.
Stand, please, please. No theatrics. It's just us here. And my crew, but they have more important things. Brother, was the transportation to your liking?
More the coming here. I most adore the engravings of the Emperor and the Saints.
Yes. Oh, it's old. I don't even know who commissioned it. Could even be before our dynasty actually got the ship. But I must say it is a finely crafted depiction. From Terra, I believe. Holy Terra, of course.
Holy Terror.
Holy Terra. Yes, before we go to your briefing, you have met my daughter, I presume?
I nod.
Yes.
Yes, we've met, she says. Yes, then we shall dispense with the pleasantries and proceed to your briefing. I assume you understand why you're here? Well, in the greater terms, you're here to serve as a warband for me.
Absolutely.
Eyes where I cannot see, hands where I don't want to be seen acting. You have had time to learn a little bit about the system we are at.
The Gilead System.
The Gilead System, indeed. Oh, let's proceed to the meeting room, and I shall brief you in full. Elmeric, you seem a bit tense. Is everything all right?
I look very uncomfortable, gripping my ice cream bowl firmly and looking like I'm looking for a way out.
I hope you didn't eat too much. We have some local bread from the planet Ostia, freshly baked this morning. It's delicious. They call them Danishes.
Curious name.
Seems to be an old recipe. Well, shall we? He motions, and a door slides to the side, and you are greeted by the sight of a garden as far as the eyes can see. Inside, there are trees, bushes, roses, flowers of all kinds. And he begins to walk, his daughter following behind in a controlled march.
I quickly match the pace, following behind.
Seeing 2 or more people marching, I consciously follow.
You break into the same pattern?
Yes.
Well, I don't march, but I follow them, figuring that that's probably the direction they want me to go.
I follow as quick as I can, but my tortured feet sometimes makes me a bit slower.
But pain is just weakness leaving the body.
Of course. But still, it's as fast as I physically can go.
You enter the gardens, which is a area. It would be. You can see fairly far, as the ship is completely flat, of course, but you cannot actually see the end of the room on the other side. Of course, you can see the sides, but it seems like a vast field. The floor is covered in grass, the softest, greenest grass, and there are, of course, the origins of the fruits you were offered, growing on trees and bushes, some even in the ground. There are servitors quietly raking the ground of leaves, picking fruits, each of them hunched, moving away as the Lord Commodore walks briskly through the grass and motions for a table carved out of the stump of a tree, but it is a tree of such a size that it can house at least a dozen around it. There are similarly small stumps carved and having cushions on them. Please, sit. Make yourselves comfortable. Do you require anything to drink, anything to eat?
I accept this invitation and place my pack upon the preferred stool and stand by attention. All this pre-war vegetation.
Of course, I wince when he say comfortable, but I do sit as it's commanded.
Danishes, anyone?
I still haven't eaten my ice cream. I'm just looking very uncomfortable here, but I sit down, still holding the bowl in my...
You have a spoon, of course, I assume.
Yeah, but I've been generally not used to this situation, all this social
Ah, yes.
rules and all that.
I do
I
accept
bow
the
quickly and take my seat. I would not request more than water. at the
Of
moment,
course,
sir.
water.
I do accept the Danish, but it just seems to disappear.
That you can have as many Danishes as you want. It's quite fine. They're here for
Some more.
consumption.
Disappear.
We might need more Danishes, and one of the servitors just glides away to produce more freshly baked.
Gotsdam, remember our talk about gluttony?
You see, my backpack is swelling. But a few crumbs is Going down outside on a mask, yes.
As you're now quite aware of, the Gilead System is our current location and where we will be spending quite a lot of time. For the most unforeseen future, this will be our base of operations. Now, we arrived about, remind me, Ray, how long ago was it? 2 weeks and 3 days. Yes, 2 weeks and 3 days since we arrived out of the Great Rift. Now, let me explain a little bit about the system and what has happened here to give you some insight into the problem. Now, when Lord Guilliman, the Emperor's blessed son, traveled through here with the Indomitus Crusade, he was, of course, in need of both manpower and rations, food, as it were, which he, of course, demanded from the local governors, who were very eager to provide, the Lord Guilliman, of course, being a beacon of hope in this dark time. Now, he left behind a rather difficult situation for the local governors to handle. And they, as being loyal citizens of the Empire, tried to provide at best they could. However, being so close to the proximity of the Great Rift, things have been difficult for the people of the Gilead System, and they are in desperate need of, what would be the word, salvation. And of course, their prayers were answered as the Emperor decided to bless us by granting us passage through the Great Rift just in time to help these planets recover and prosper as they once did. Now, I have dispatched agents across this system to learn of local problems, to aid in whatever way they could, and to prepare for the changes that needs to be done to ensure that peace and order is once again restored to the system. And my eye is currently on the planet of Charybdion. Charybdion, which you can see, and he motions to the ceiling, and the ceiling just kind of fades to reveal a large, dark blue orb in the void above you. And Charybdion is a hive world. It houses about, let me see, 4 billion souls. It's a subcategory in Ocean World, ruled up until now by Ganthet Veneratio, Lord Governor Ganthet Veneratio. The situation is that there are several rocky islands, long jagged cliffs, and massive reef structures that provided the building ground for these hives. Charybdion's main source of export is seaweed for nutrients. Now, Lord Governor Veneratio has been missing for quite some time, my agents tell me, and the local populace is getting unruly. Nothing that couldn't normally be handled by the planetary defense forces. Unfortunately, they are currently not in the system. So it falls upon us to ensure that riots and disruption in production is kept at a minimum. I will send you to the capital hive of Idon, which is where Lord Governor Veneratio had his personal residence, and I would like you to find, if possible, Veneratio. If he is dead, which is what many of the local nobles seem to believe, then we will have to, well, handle that when it appears. But I have been asked by some of my closer allies here to help them in finding a suitable successor. Of course, you are not entirely the most diplomatic of my warbands, which I know, and I would not demand this to be your primary task. Rather, I also require you to investigate a series of murders that have been happening in this capital hive. Normally, murder would not even register, but these have been killings of local nobility. Not entirely uncommon in itself, but my agents tell me that there are accusations being thrown, that there are preparations for retribution, and I would like to avoid that. The people of Caribbean look to their nobility for leadership, for stability, for peace, and if the nobility is not at peace, the people will not be at peace. Are you following along so far?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Of course. Excellent. Now, you will of course not be the only warband sent down to Caribbean. In fact, I would say that you are not even one in a dozen. But you will not have to interact with any of the other ones unless you would be in a situation where, well, you would require it. Now, the situation in the Gilead system being what it is, you will be acting naturally under my name, officially. This is not a clandestine operation. We are here as saviors to the system. We are here to provide hope for people who have very little to provide themselves with. Therefore, I want you to do your utmost in not antagonizing the local population. Of course, violence is an unfortunate but necessary part of solving many situations, but always keep in mind that all your actions will be reflecting upon my dynasty, and I don't believe I need to remind you how I perceive any such besmirchment upon my family name. You will be provided with a habitat in the hive, a temporary one, perhaps one you will be using longer should your services prove to be of a continued necessity, and we'll be meeting with Prefect Aurelius as soon as possible, who is one of the closest advisor of Veneratio. He will inform you and brief you more about the recent series of murders. The man is a boor. He believes himself valuable far above his station, but he is still a man of some influence. Don't antagonize him unless absolutely necessary. Again, be careful. Any questions so far?
If I have understood you correctly, any act of violence necessary should be kept with a certain amount of secrecy. We are not out to display our power, so to say.
The political situation in the Gilead system is complicated. The person currently in charge of maintaining peace and order is Lord Militant Tyleria Philemon. Tyleria Philemon does not like me. She considers me a nuisance, she distrusts me and the dynasty, and any actions done to harm the order of the system, I believe she will consider an act of hostility from the dynasty itself. Of course, the loyalty to her from the lords and ladies and nobility of the system is shaky. I would not say that she has her unswerving loyalty, but should you, by accident or on purpose, harm a person of high enough standing that she will be forced to take action, that will severely set back my plans for the system.
Understood.
If you find yourself in a need of conducting violence, always make sure that it is done discreetly, as you said, and to persons who don't matter.
I nod understandingly.
Fantastic. There are several other planets in the system. Caribbean, however, I believe will prove key to tipping the scales in my favor. Caribbean has a strong, influential nobility, and with their loyalty, I will be more in a position of power than I was before. Will you be able to handle this?
Of course.
I believe so.
As at least 2 other people have done, I do the same. I smack off a salute without saying a word.
Good.
Finding and stopping killers is not something that is given. They might be hidden very well. It might take a very long time to find them, but we will assuredly do our very best. And my mind is quite keen on finding things lost and hidden.
Of course. That gladdens me. There is a transportation waiting for you in the same docking area as you arrived in. It will bring you to Caribbean's capital hive, Idon. You have the option of either approaching Prefect Aurelius right away. He knows that you will be arriving. Or you may proceed to your designated hab block and acquaint yourself with the area and your future lodgings. The decision is yours, and I will inform the prefect of it, and whenever you are ready to continue the investigation, he will be told as well.
Might I inquire about, is there any form of analysis or potential information on the killings? Any details?
The nobility of Caribbean has been tight-lipped regarding this. It is clear that there are more than one murder. It is clear that there is hostility created from it between the noble families, and that's all I know. I'm sure that Prefect Aurelius knows more than he has told me, but I also believe that the distance between us, the physical distance, permits him some more courage than were you to approach him in person and demand more information. After all, you're also acting with the full might of the dynasty behind you. While I find it disagreeable to act blatantly, threats, whether true or not, are always at your disposal. But keep in mind that we are here to make allies, not enemies. If you can convince the man that we are acting in his best interest, so much the better. And if it turns out that the murderer is some hive scum or mutant dreg, then I'm most sure that it will be a public execution. But how you deal with it, I leave entirely in your hands.
Thank you.
As long as the murders end. And they know that the Varonius dynasty ended them.
Shall we be on our way? We've been given a task.
I gaze upon Jakel, give him a salute, and walk away.
A servitor slides up to you with a full plate of danishes.
I look upon the brother here, and my fingers go close, but close beforehand, not giving me a nod, moving away towards the floating elevator thingy and the great doors.
Of course. You pass through the doors quickly, and the trip down is about as long. And indeed, there is another lighter, as they're called, I believe. Yes, an Arvis lighter waiting for you in the docking bay. You board it and head down to the Black Pearl of the Gilead System.